what's happening? Curious youngsters, I'm sure if you like curiosities, you have to like history. And if you like history, you should be fascinated by historical photos. For this and much more, these are 50 historical photos you have to see. One. In the photo, we see the American flag burning in the hands of protesters. But these were not dissatisfied citizens, they were Japanese protesters, who, in 1995, were seeking the closure of the American base on Okinawa Island after certain incidents with a group of soldiers. 2. During the Great Depression of 1930, people had so little money that they would do anything to get some bills. In Chicago, a group of wealthy people paid to watch couples dance to exhaustion in a dance marathon. And this could last hours or entire days. 3. During World War II, there was a lot of fighting on the Pacific Front, and this is one of the many situations that occurred, where the natives of the islands encountered soldiers and advanced technology that was almost impossible for them to understand. In the early 1900s photo, we see a poor Indian woman from the Sikkimese community carrying a British man on her back. In the late 19th century, the first armed conflicts between Japan and China started to emerge. This Chinese immigrant family appeared content months after moving to the United States for a brighter future. 6. Over the years, the world has changed quite a bit. And even though today the school is a bit more flexible and is a friendlier place, before it seemed a bit stricter. This photo shows children in Portugal wearing drab uniforms, circa 1936, 1937. This photograph summarizes one of the most tragic moments in the history of world football, May 11th of 1985. The Bradford City Stadium suffered a fire in its main stand, which ended the lives of 56 people and hundreds of injured. In the early 1920s, King George V of the United Kingdom was traveling by horse-drawn carriage to an event in Epsom, alongside Prince Harry, the Duke of Gloucester, and other royal members. The photo depicts a beggar seeking alms as the carriage advances. The 1937 story of the Zeppelin Hindenburg was among the most remembered in aviation history. The photo shows a wounded survivor being moved while calmly smoking a cigarette. Outstanding. The photo shows an Aboriginal Australian man using a telephone for the first time in 1975. The claim that it depicts drug trafficker Pablo Escobar and his son in front of the White House is false. The leader of the Medellin cartel entered and left the United States in the 80s with total impunity. During one of his trips in 1981, he reached the gates of the White House to take a picture. In 1968, minutes after winning the primary elections, Kennedy was assassinated by Sirhan Sirhan, a Palestinian man. The photo depicts the senator lying on the kitchen floor of the Ambassador Hotel. Nothing more could be done. 13. A flag at half-mast can be seen on the building's terrace, but it's not an ordinary flag. We see the German embassy in Sweden on April 30th, 1945. On the day of Adolf Hitler's death, the Third Reich, despite surviving a few more weeks, paid tribute to him. After World War II, thousands of trials were held against Axis soldiers and generals to condemn their actions. Some, like Commander Radolf Höss, were executed where they had committed their crimes. He was hanged inside the Auschwitz concentration camp in 1947. Nelson Mandela symbolized freedom for millions. In this photograph, he is seen through the bars of a truck with his fist raised. After being sentenced to life imprisonment in June of 1964-16, these people who seem happy while running inside the White House are actually journalists who have just received the news about the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. And they run to the nearest phones to communicate with their bosses and spread the news. 17. New York is one of the most visited cities in the world, and although today it displays a large number of skyscrapers, this is what the Big Apple looked like in 1970, with the Twin Towers under construction. 18. EA. The person we see in the photo is not a child dressed up for Halloween, but we are in front of the last king of Italy, Umberto II. When he was only 3 years old, they already dressed him in armors and very delicate suits, showing him what his adult life would be like 19. The impressive tomb pictured at the bottom belongs to the renowned military leader, Napoleon. Hitler and other German army generals observed the invasion of France from a balcony. In 1940-20, this large group of children carry with them a very dark story. A customs inspector discovered them on a ship in 1904, while they were traveling hidden to be sent to China, to be sold as slaves to rich families. 21. The group of people we see in the photo did not gather to observe an eclipse, but they did so to see the detonation of the nuclear bomb. Priscilla, during the 1957 nuclear test Operation Plum Bob. 22. Winston Churchill became one of the most recognized politicians in all of history for effectively managing the United Kingdom during World War II. In this photo, he is walking in central London with his daughter, Mary. In 1943, Muhammad Ali, one of history's most famous boxers, was born. One of his phrases was, "Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee." In this photo, we see how he floats to dodge a punch from Joey Frazier in the fight of the century on March 8, 1971. 24. What you're seeing is not a painting or a computer-generated image, but a huge mural of Lenin that was painted on a building in Leningrad in 1971. The presence of tiny people walking at the bottom of the photograph confirms this. 25. Babe Ruth was one of the most famous baseball players ever. In this case, he's not batting or catching a ball, but lying on the ground unconscious after being knocked out. 3 young men and a Russian girl are seen in this World War II photo. Trying to catch the ball, one hit the wall. 26. After being liberated from a German concentration camp, survivors placed flowers at the feet of 4 American soldiers who had died fighting against the Germans. 27. Christopher Lee was one of the most recognized actors in Hollywood for having participated in more than 250 films, playing characters such as Dracula, Saruman, or Count Dooku. But in this photo, we see his other stage, where he was not dedicated to cinema, but was part of a special operations group of the British Army during the Second World War. Jesse Owens, the hero of Berlin, was an American athlete who competed in the 1936 Olympics. Did he manage to humiliate Hitler by taking home 4 gold medals? The photo depicts the classic American scene of a child selling lemonade in their backyard. In 1973, a boy lived in Aspen, Colorado. Madam C.I. Walker was the first African-American woman millionaire in the United States. In this photo, she is seen driving one of the first Ford cars on the market alongside her friends. 31. What you're seeing is not a scene from a post-apocalyptic movie, but a photograph of the well-known Green Line of Beirut, Lebanon, in 1982. This area was a boundary that divided the capital during the Lebanese Civil War. From 1975 to 1992, the sign we see in the store says "I am American," and it was placed by its Japanese owner days after the attack on Pearl Harbor, since those people of Japanese descent began to run a serious risk in the United States. Most chose to move or hide, but this gentleman preferred to put up a sign to avoid his discrimination. 33. In the photo, we can see 2 very well-dressed men, but we can also see a certain degree of kinship in their faces. They were cousins, and let's say no, they were not very unknown. The man on the right is King George V of the United Kingdom, and the one on the left is Tsar Nicholas II of Russia. In 1992, Dr. Mae Jemison became the first African-American woman to fly into space. This image shows her inside the International Space Station 35. It is not a behind-the-scenes shot from a movie, but this is what French soldiers looked like a year before the First World War began. 36. This curious photo shows Bianca Passer, a German girl of only 17 years old who dances on top of wine bottles while dressed as a cat. In 1958-37, this locomotive with a rather intimidating look. In 1940, it was the Reichsbahn's latest novelty. That is, the German train company responsible for developing the transport system during the World War II. 38. Rest assured that those children are not locked up, but are enjoying a ride on the Rocket Express, a small monorail on the 8th floor of the John Wanamaker Shopping Center in Philadelphia in 1950. Woodstock, the most massive music and art festival in all of history. The 3-day music festival, attended by over 500,000 people, had its share of expected events and occurrences. 2 spectators were so exhausted from the event that they fell asleep on top of a Volkswagen Beetle. You're looking at an unusual ship from 1962. This is an RP Flip, an oceanographic research ship that has the ability to position itself at 90 degrees and stay that way without problems for weeks. 41, Barack Obama became the first African-American president to be in the United States. And in this photo from 1988, we see him with 3 women from the village where his father was born in Kenya. 42. The women rejoice after securing improved working conditions. After a 7-day strike at the Woolworth factories in Detroit, United States in 1937-43, this photograph seems to have been repeated for decades in the United States. Where the right to bear arms leads people to prepare for disturbances as if they were on a battlefield. This image shows 2 merchants ready to protect their property. During the 1992 Los Angeles riots, there were no computer programs to show simulations. In 1887, the engineers of the Forte Bridge demonstrated the principles that would keep the Great Bridge in place. 45. The ship we are seeing was the Endurance, which became super famous after getting trapped in the middle of exploring Antarctica at the hands of explorer Ernest Shackleton. 46. The Vietnam War was one of the last major conflicts of the modern era. The photo shows an American soldier carrying a bazooka and ammunition while crossing a stream. In 1966-47, the German Zeppelin Hindenburg became known for being in operation for only 1 year until it caught fire. And here, it can be seen flying over the city of Boston in 1936-48. People smoke less today compared to a few decades ago. In the photo, we see what was the first public ashtray, which was installed on the streets of New York in 1958-49. This incredible photograph was taken from inside an iceberg during a British expedition to Antarctica in 1911-50. From 1994 to 1996, the First Chechen War developed between Russia and the Chechen Republic. And in this photo, we see a Chechen soldier with a homemade weapon waiting for the Battle of Grozno. Before I go, let me greet a few subscribers. First, I send a big greeting to Noodle Save, then another big greeting to Wanho XT. I also send a big greeting to Lizzer, another big greeting for Giovanni Rodriguez, and finally I send a big greeting to Chilo Wei, another greeting for Full Magic. And the last greeting goes to the crack of Caesar H. Now, yes, leave your comment, everything, probably everything you want. Do not forget to share the channel and the video with your friends. Meanwhile, I greet you. Remember to subscribe and click the bell to stay updated with new videos. I am Silu Cruosity.